All right, hello everybody. We've got a viral math problem here that I want to go through that I've seen online. It's 60 divided by 2 multiplied by the quantity 3 plus 7. And I know there are a few people out there. I think most people recognize that when you see a number outside of parentheses, that represents multiplication. I have had some people question this and go, well, this doesn't make sense because there's no plus, minus, division sign, anything here. And I think a lot of people just forgot what the idea of implicit multiplication is. So that's what that represents. So if you'd like to, you can pause the video here and we'll come back and we'll work this one out together. All right, so first of all, if you remember your order of operations, and that would be from early elementary school, possibly primary school. I'm not sure exactly what the grade years would be, say in the UK or elsewhere, but I know in the United States, this is some elementary school mathematics. But you start with solving inside of the parentheses first. Parentheses are telling us that we need to solve what's inside. And so that's pretty simple. 3 plus 7 is 10. And then so we're left with 60 divided by 2 multiplied by 10. All right, now from here, a lot of people remember different acronyms like PEMDAS or BODMAS, and a lot of people remember, okay, parentheses, then exponents. Then you look for multiplication and division, going left to right. Now, multiplication and division have precedence over addition. So we would just solve those going left to right. In this case, we run into division first going left to right. 60 divided by 2. All right, so like I say, division comes first going left to right. We have this division, then we have this multiplication. So we'd start with 60 divided by 2. Well, 60 divided by 2 is 30. We have 30 here. So we're just left with 30 times 10. And remember, multiplication and division are solved left to right. Multiplication and division have equal precedence, and that's an important thing. And once again, like I mentioned before, this is implicit multiplication whenever you have a number outside of parentheses like this, and there's no symbol. If you don't have a symbol here, it's always assumed that this is multiplication. It's implied that it's multiplication. That's why it's referred to as implicit multiplication. And that's opposed to explicit. Explicit multiplication is when you actually have a multiplication symbol. All right, so 30 times 10 is what? Well, it's 30 times 10. This is the same as this. Here I have the multiplication symbol. These two expressions here are equal. These two equations are actually, because I have an equal sign, they are equal to each other. 30 times 10 is 300. So the answer would be 300 to this problem. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that remember PEMDAS, BODMAS, BOMDAS, BEDMAS, BIDMAS, PEDMAS. There's a whole bunch of these different acronyms. They all represent the same 4 steps of order of operations. And I know there's a lot of people out there going, well, PEMDAS says you got to multiply before you divide. And that's not true. Not true at all. If we're looking just at PEMDAS, and again, I'm saying all these acronyms give you the same answer, but we're just going to highlight PEMDAS, which is parentheses, then exponents, then it's multiplication and division left to right. Division is the same thing as multiplying by a reciprocal. Then finally, addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction also have equal precedence. Subtraction is just adding a negative number. So if we step through PEMDAS, if we step through this problem again, step by step, again, the first step would be the parentheses, as we did. It's the 3 plus 7. The 3 plus 7 is 10. And as you go through, we don't have any exponents, so I crossed that out. Remember, if you don't have a step, you don't just stop, you go to the next step. So we have something in parentheses, we don't have any exponents, so now we skip to multiplication and division going left to right. Well, in this case, division comes first, going left to right. So we have 60 divided by 2. We have division. So we must handle the division. 60 divided by 2 is 30. So it's 30 times 10. And then the last thing we've got here is we have multiplication. We have 30 times 10. Well, 30 times 10 is 300. We do not have any addition and subtraction at the end to worry about, so we basically stop after step 3 and we're done. We have 300. Now, as I kind of hinted at before, a lot of people do not understand PEMDAS, BODMAS, any of these acronyms. A lot of people just don't understand them. None of these acronyms are a 6-step checklist. Many people falsely think that multiplication comes before division just because of the order of letters that are in PEMDAS. Remember, exponents are just shorthand for repeated multiplication. Multiplication is shorthand for repeated addition. So you can kind of see how this is building up. The parentheses were just grouping symbols, but then we have exponents. Then we have multiplication and division. Now, the reason division has equal precedence, it's equivalent to multiplication because it's equivalent to multiplying by a reciprocal. Multiplication and division have equal precedence, and they're solved left to right. All right, and addition and subtraction. Again, addition and subtraction have equal precedence. Subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative number. All right, so why is this problem viral? Well, that's a good question. Um, there is another convention. Remember, conventions are not laws. Conventions are agreed upon standards, agreed upon ways of solving mathematics. And there is a convention that's not as well known, but it's implicit multiplication by juxtaposition. And that convention and PEMDAS um, can sometimes create some ambiguities in mathematical interpretations. Um, they really don't agree with each other. An example of why they could conflict. Um, Implicit multiplication by juxtaposition. So what we're talking about here is implicit multiplication again. It occurs when two quantities are written next to each other without a visible multiplication sign. So for example, 2x means 2 times x. Those things are the same. 3 outside of these parentheses, you have 4 plus 5 inside of parentheses. This represents the same thing as 3 times the quantity 4 plus 5, or it's basically the same thing as 3 times 9 if you add up everything inside of the parentheses. Now, the way the convention of implicit multiplication has worked is that implicit multiplication is often given higher precedence than explicit multiplication or division, especially in some educational or scientific contexts. Now, example is here's another viral problem here. The 6 divided by 2 times the quantity 1 plus 2. All right, so there's a couple possible interpretations. Now, the way PEMDAS and BODMAS are taught, the modern interpretation of these is that implicit multiplication equals explicit multiplication. There is no difference. Multiplication is just multiplication. And to tell you the truth, that's really the way I know in North America, the educational systems, that's what they're drilling into everybody's mind today. I know that in algebra, there's been a lot of use in scientific journals. There's been a lot of use of implicit multiplication. But if you're using PEMDAS strictly, the strict interpretation that's used, there's no difference between implicit and explicit. So you resolve inside of those parentheses first. Your 1 plus 2 equals 3. Then your expression becomes 6 divided by 2 times 3. Now, you treat 2 times 3 as 2 times 3, but remember, multiplication and division are equal in precedence, so you work them left to right. So in this case, you would first divide 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and then you're left with 3 times 3 is 9. The result is 9. And the reason is because there's no priority given to implicit multiplication here. Now, if you give implicit multiplication higher priority, which is common in some contexts, I'll say it was more common a very long time ago. It's not as common today, but you would resolve the parentheses the same. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then you treat 2 times 3 as a single implicit multiplication unit, and you would give it higher priority over division. So in this case, you would actually, it's the same thing as putting parentheses, another set of parentheses or brackets around the 2 times 3, leaving you 6 divided by 6 equals 1. So you've got two different answers here. And so, why the conflict between these two conventions? Well, again, PEMDAS treats multiplication and division as having equal precedence, and they're just evaluated left to right. Frankly, BODMAS does the same thing. The acronyms are all the same. But implicit multiplication by juxtaposition is sometimes interpreted as having higher precedence than explicit division or multiplication, which isn't explicitly addressed in PEMDAS. And I will say there were some Casio scientific calculators, and there's some famous pictures out there. I've actually got another video dealing with this issue. But some Casio scientific calculators were actually programmed to give higher precedence to implicit multiplication, and other models did not. So even within the Casio line of calculators, you could get two different answers depending on which model you used. And I will say, I don't think it's that common on scientific calculators to give precedence to implicit multiplication. If anybody's aware of a current model, a newer model that still does that, feel free to leave that in the comments. I'm aware of some older Casios that did do that, but I don't know of any current models. All right, so hopefully that has been some help, and you understand this whole topic a little bit better. But it seems like the problems that get the most attention are these ones that have the implicit multiplication, because it always leads to a conflict. And I at least wanted to cover these two conventions so that you understand where that's coming from. All right, I hope the video has been helpful. Please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.